go do a little dance. I knew someone would join you. I love that part. Join us for our opening song, This Moment. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Vicki Jeter, and I'm the Senior Practitioner for Louisville Center for Spiritual Living, and it is so much our pleasure to invite you all to be with us here today. I feel confident that everyone in this room knows that we have Miss Jane Elizabeth Smith speaking for us today, and I want to make sure that any of you that are here for the first time are aware that we have a sign-up book back there if you'd like to possibly receive what's going on. We send out a weekly easing. And if you have any questions about that, let us know. And now we're going to have an evocation and a candle lighting, and Miss Pat Ferguson is going to help me with the candle lighting. When we take the pausing breath, breathing deeply in and releasing completely, we give ourselves that opportunity to be in touch with the gap of grace that is the space of first cause in spirit, that point of perfect stillness that is like the center of the potter's wheel found at the center of all creation, individually and collectively. And the opportunity to simply breathe is both the presence and the process all at once, from which we cannot be separated, and is truly closer than our very breathing, in the sense of the idea that that which is the source and the wellspring of all that we are is eternally with us. All of us come from so many different paths this morning, and yet we find ourselves in this common space. And so, in this time, we are one. Give yourself a moment to find your way here in complete presence, setting aside everything that has been and opening to everything that is and will be. This is a sacred time and space, for this gathering, right here, right now, will never be exactly the same again. And so truly, we open our hearts, we open our minds to know who we are together. And in profound gratitude, I release these words, letting them be, and so it is. And now we have announcements, Mr. Gordon. I will trade you places.
Alrighty. Featuring still New Year Newton.
Back behind the mic.
Pardon? Oh, behind the mic, that's right. Okay, New Year Newton, that would be me, at least for the remainder of this year, or a few weeks, whatever. Announcements and so on. One of the weirdest things about being an adult is having a favorite stove top burner, yet nobody talks about it. I know, it's one of those adult secrets. Right? Kids wonder, though. Okay, nobody talks about it. True. Let's see, community visioning for LCSL, first Saturday of every month. February 1 is our first one there. 10 a.m. to 10:45 EST. This would be the Telebridge. Is there anybody who hasn't had experience with Telebridge yet? Maybe just a couple people. Okay, you're on. Did you want to say anything about that to Orlando Fears?
No, you did that beautifully. He's encouraging you to have a new experience. I concur. I think everyone who hasn't been on, particularly that Telebridge, should give it a try.
It is. Vicki, explain the difference between Telebridge and Zoom in case people.
Okay, so Zoom is, we have been teaching classes and having other meetings on Zoom, and that's an opportunity to either be on the computer where we can see each other, and or at the same time, if you can't get on your computer, you can dial in just like on the Telebridge. The Telebridge is telephone only, and you dial a number and a computer voice comes on and says, enter your access code, and when you enter that little second code there, that 809778, it drops you into your specific group, and everyone can hear you, and you can hear everyone. And the same thing is true on Zoom. If you can click and be on your video, that's all good, but if not, you can call in. And you don't have to say anything. The visionings are a facilitated process. And so if you wanted to come and be present to that and check it out, it's not like you have to say anything specific. You can just follow along. Thank you for the opportunity to designate the two. Does anybody have any questions since we're giving people maybe new information? Okay. I will step back once again.
Okay, thank you. Another Social Sunday coming up right away. All right, folks, you know the drill. I like that. Bring a dish, stay a while. Bring a dish, stay forever. Bring a dish, stay after, and enjoy the entire meal, of course, and then all the company from us. And that's February 2nd. That's coming up.
Next Sunday.
Yes, next week.
And the dishes that have been brought so far are amazing. Okay, men's group, our next meeting is February 6th. That puts us back, pretty much back on the schedule. So there's no men's meeting till then, and we'll let you know next week. Yeah, Steve?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it won't be at my house because we're gonna be out of town.
Right, you've got that cool trip coming up, yeah. Okay, well, that'll be in my house. I don't get to go on a trip. Poor me, right? Okay, next meeting, so that's that.
So hold on, hold on.
Yes.
One more thing about that. Anyone in the room who might like to attend that meeting that needs the address, make sure I have your email. I'm a little bit of the secretary for the men's group. I don't attend, but I do send out a reminder email. So for anyone who would like an email reminder with the address of where to go, let me know.
Great, thank you. Practitioner of the day is our Pat Ferguson. Hey, Pat. Meet Pat up front in the power shower room for group prayer, confidential prayer by request. Anything else, Steve, you'd like to add to that?
No, I'll just be there within 5 minutes after service ends.
Okay. January's affirmation altogether. This is the year
I will be stronger, braver, kinder, unstoppable, and this year I will be fierce. Yes.
I like that, fierce. Okay, yeah, you know, there's a spin on this I saw the other day. And I'm not gonna say much about it, but the guy ends with, and if you don't like my story, then write your own. Well, maybe this will be the place it starts. Tell your story. Who's got a story for us today? Like maybe somebody who's been sitting back thinking, well, should I do this or not?
And it could be a story, it could be a prayer request, it could be a demonstration you've had, anything that you would like to share with the world.
I've got one, because I can kind of jump around when I do that. I've got a story.
Okay?
Okay?
All right.
Some of you are aware that in the last year, Margot and I have two new puppies, not children, real puppies. Okay, and I had forgotten what that was like to have a puppy in your house, but I know now, and I probably know better now. But there's a saying, what, better late than never? Not in this case, because what are you going to do? You know, they're challenging. Anyway, we got them some red sweaters. Now, isn't that stupid? It's awesome. They are so proud of this. These little Shih Tzus, so they're only about this big. You know, they're getting fluffier and fluffier by the day. But as soon as Margot put the sweater on them, the smaller one was jumping up for joy, liked the way the sweater looked on the bigger dog, you know. I thought, okay, this is great, I want my own sweater. So now both of them, they don't fight because they have their own sweaters. But they have to leave their sweater at the door when they come in the house. They gotta come over, we take it off them. And they're really easy to use. So if you thought about getting a sweater for your dog, I would say go ahead and do it. You know? And I never thought I would say that. Okay, so anybody else a little story? Yes.
I just want to announce, there's some birthday chocolate cake back there. It's tomorrow is Steve's birthday.
Oh, yay!
69 years young.
Yay!
Awesomeness.
All right, then, that's it. Next.
I'm gonna submit to the reader in just a moment. I want to do two things very quickly. One is, I'll just take just half a second to announce that I have started my second of my ministerial classes, which is called Metaphysical Bible. And I'm just here to tell you guys, I'm going to be speaking the last week of February, and I would like to see everyone in this room, because I posted on Facebook last night that I now am truly coming into understanding that the Bible is a spiritual text that can help people collectively bring our experience into the kingdom of heaven at hand. And why that is would take a whole talk, which I'm not going to do. I'm sure Ms. Jane Elizabeth would appreciate that, but I'm just saying. And then the other thing that I want to do before we get into sacred reading, because it really does set our space for the speaker, is I'm going to do a little introduction. Miss Jane says, "Love is my religion." And I think that that might also be the topic title. Yes. Fits you anyway, though. I'm sure love is your religion. Jane had a mystical, heavenly, spiritual awakening as the result of an experience during a church service some 35 years ago. Spirit left its calling card for her, and she's been on a deep, searching immersion of all things spiritual since that time. Jane is a published author of 3 spiritual books: Call Forth a Blessing, Your 3 Wishes, and A Change of Heart. She has been a teacher of meditation for 30 years. Jane traveled to and from Hawaii twice a year. This part that I hope to get to know you more about this. She traveled back and forth from Hawaii for 10 years for 2-week intensives in Hawaiian Huna. Oh my gosh. The laws of ancient spiritual teachings. Jane is a shaman initiate of Huna, and I have a question about that. Jane completed the 500-hour 3-year classroom curriculum through Midwest School of Astrology. As a graduate from this school, she is an ISAR accredited astrologer. Awesomeness. So, can we have a round of applause for Miss Jane Smith? Now we'll have our reading.
This reading is something I came across several months ago, and I haven't been able to get it out of my mind. The words were written in 1983, but they are still applicable today. And because what I'm about to add to this opening, I feel a little bit like a practitioner gone rogue. Some of you may feel this reading has a partisan lean or tone to it, but I want to assure you that the last thing I would do would be to bring into our center a political bin that doesn't spoon perfectly with our spiritual groove. Now I feel a little bit like my inner hippie has been exposed. So I hope you will not hear this with your ear, but rather receive it in your heart, as it comes from nowhere but mine. There's a full moon over India, and Gandhi lives again. Who's to say you have to lose for someone else to win? In the eyes of all the people, the look is much the same. For the first is just the last when you play a deadly game. It's about time we realize it. We're all in this together. It's about time we find out it's all of us or none. It's about time we recognize it, these changes in the weather. It's about time. It's about changes, and it's about time. There's a light in the Vatican window for all the world to see, and a voice cries out in the wilderness, and sometimes it speaks to me. I suppose I love him most of all when he kneels to kiss the land. With his lips upon our mother's breast, he makes his strongest stand. It's about time we start to see it. The earth is our only home. It's about time we start to face it. We can't make it here all alone. It's about time we start to listen to the voices in the wind. It's about time. It's about changes. And it's about time. There's a man who is my brother. I just don't know his name, but I know his home and family because I know we feel the same. And it hurts me when he's hungry and when his children cry. I too am a parent, and that little one is mine. It's about time we begin to turn the world around. It's about time we start to make it the dream we've always known. It's about time we start to live like the family of man. It's about time, it's about changes, and it's about time. It's about peace, and it's about plenty, and it's about time. It's about you and me together, and it's about time. And so it is.
So it
There's a full moon over India, and I'm headed to the end. And who's to say you have to lose for someone else to win? In the eyes of all the people, the look is much the same. But the first is just the last one when you play a deadly game. It's about time we realize it. We're all in this together. It's about time we find out. It's all of us or none. It's about time we recognize it. These changes in the weather. It's about time. It's about changes, and it's about time. There's a light in the Vatican window for all the world to see. And a voice cries in the wilderness. Sometimes he speaks for me. I suppose I love him most of all when he kneels to kiss the land. With his lips upon our mother's breast, he makes his strongest stand. It's about time we start to see it. The earth is our only home. It's about time we start to face it. We can't make it here on our own. It's about time we start to listen to the voices in the wind. It's about time. It's about changes. It's about time. There's a man who is my brother. I just don't know his name. But I know his home and family because I know we feel the same. And it hurts me when he's hungry and when his children cry. I too am a father, and that little one is mine. It's about time we begin it. To turn the world around, it's about time we start to make it. The dream we've always known, it's about time we start to live it. The family of man, it's about time, it's about changes, and it's about time. It's about peace, and it's about plenty, and it's about time. It's about you and me together, and it's about time.
wow. That doesn't understand what makes you total.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's a great day to be alive. Here we are. It's sunshiny and 50 degrees in January. That's sweet. Recently, I saw a topographical map of the United States which only showed its major waterways. And I was really kind of taken aback because there is a heart-shaped system of waterways right in the Midwest, which we've always called the Heartland, and we right here in Greater Louisville, Southern Indiana, are at the tip of that heart. And I found that very interesting. It's been said by many people that perhaps this area of the planet is the beating heart chakra of the planet. And somehow that seems appropriate to me with all of the heart-related medicine we have in Louisville and things of that nature. But nonetheless, forget all that. Let's just say for a moment, as we sit in the tip of this heart, that we are the tipping point for the heart and soul of humanity to get it so that everyone can rise to love. What if it's just one of us? What if it's just me that finally gets it? That changes everything for all of us. What if? You know, there's a scientific, evidential story. This is not made up. This is truth. On some small island somewhere in the Pacific, there were monkeys. I can't tell you what kind, but there were all these monkeys. And they ate potatoes as their mainstay food. So on one island, the monkeys started cleaning their potatoes before they ate them. Okay, and so the people studying these monkeys started noticing, okay, that monkey's doing it, that monkey's doing it, that monkey's doing it. And there also happened to be a team of scientists on an island over here that wasn't accessible to the monkeys, okay, that also had monkeys, and they were studying them. So what happened is on that first island where they were washing their potatoes before they ate them, and they were counting how many monkeys were doing this, one after the other, it took until the 100th monkey started washing his potatoes, and then automatically all of the monkeys on the other island started washing theirs. So what if you, me, us, or the 100th monkey to change this whole thing to be the tipping point to bring love to reign on earth? It's possible. So today, love is my religion, and I'll be talking about that. Okay. I love this verse. I kept it in a small frame that someone very, very special gave to me 30 plus years ago. It's from A Course in Miracles. Teach only love, for that is what you are. You can meditate on that one for decades, but that kind of says it all. So let's talk about this. And first off, I just want to say that I wait when I have an opportunity such as this one to speak. I wait until I'm guided on what to talk about. And I want you to know that what I'm usually end up talking about is something that I need to build and work on and in my own self. So let's talk about what is love. Well, love is really just a quality of being, isn't it? It's an essence of energy, the feeling we have about someone or something. It's intangible. You can't touch it, taste it, smell it. You can't put your hand on it, can you? It's an extrasensory energy. It's something outside of ourselves, yet it's felt within ourselves. And here's what Webster's has to say about it. It's brotherly concern for others, a person's adoration for God. And then if we've heard the word agape love, it's being in a state of wonder about God. And just some more on the context of what love is. We've all seen the passage from 1 Corinthians 13 at every wedding we've attended. What is love? It is patient, it is kind, it doesn't envy or boast. What is that related to? Our ego. So we could say that love is not our ego. Our ego is the opposite of it. Does not insist on its own way, is not irritable or resentful, does not rejoice at the wrongdoings of others, but rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things, and love never ends. So if love never ends, that means I must be just part of its eternal flow. It's something I can't individually possess. I can only align myself to it. So let's talk about religion and look at that definition. Religion is the worship of God or the supernatural, commitment or devotion to religious faith or observance, a personal set of institutionalized system of religious attitudes, beliefs, and practices, a cause, principle, or system of beliefs held to with ardor and faith. So it can be said that religion is a set of attitudes, beliefs, and practices held to with ardor and faith. So if love is my religion, I must then have a set of attitudes, beliefs, and practices that I hold to with ardor and faith. That's a tall order, very tall. So first, let me give you my background, and there's a story here involved. Because all of us have all sorts of religious beliefs, but our backgrounds bring us to different paths to find it. So I grew up Catholic, and in my household, and in Catholicism, if any of you know, Catholic isn't something you do on Sunday. It's a living, breathing religion in your home and in your life. And I went to parochial schools, and so I grew up, having to go to church every morning before school for many years, and then, all the obligatory times for church. And when I turned 18 and got out of that house, I ran as far away from that as possible because it was just boring to me. I didn't get anything out of it. It was just a set of rules and laws, and there was a priest that was an intermediary. I needed the priest to get to God, so it didn't do anything for me. But in the early 80s, I went to a Catholic church service for one of those obligatory holidays, okay? This obligatory holiday to go to church was Palm Sunday. So I went into a church that I had never been in, and it was, I had a very long aisle, was very majestic, and I was sitting in one of the back pews because it was packed. So what I had never seen before in a Catholic church was this priest bellowing out in song from the vestibule. And then he walks in with a bowl, with his altar boys carrying a bowl of water. And they were walking backwards, and he was dipping huge fresh palm leaves in it and spraying everyone. Now this was very unusual because that didn't normally happen in the Catholic Church. But what happened when he walked past me and that water flung, it hit me. And something strange happened. And it happened to the person I was with. It was a mystical, incredible, God-centered experience. And when I left that church, I was never the same. Was it the water? No. It was this particular priest had an absolute holy connection with God and was an ordinary person and didn't intend to live any other way. But he had it. It came through him because that's how God works. So I chased after that through all sorts of modalities through the years, to this access point, to reach that again and again and again. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't access that feeling through the Catholic Church, nor any other organized religion. I couldn't find it, but I kept searching through meditation and all these other programs. So another way I was looking for love, though, which I believe love is God, was through other people, mostly men. And I was looking for that deep love that I so desperately wanted and needed. But I was seeking from others what I really could only access through God, through God's love. And that pathway of seeking it for others led me down, in that search for God, I went into an incredibly dark space. It lasted 6 years. The valley of the shadow of death. And at one point during this, I became so very desperate that I was crying hysterically and begging for God over and over, please help me save my soul. Please help me save my soul. I mean, I was begging, crying. And I became so exhausted from this that I went very deep inside. I wasn't asleep, but I was very deep. And all of a sudden, I heard a very loud voice that said, just be love. And I know that was the voice of God. I know it. And so from that time, I'm like, there's my solution, right? And so I'm like, well, be love. How do you be love? I know how you be loving, but how do you be love? What is that? So I'm driving along one day, sometime after that, and I'm in traffic, stuck at a traffic light. And right in front of me is a bumper sticker, and I've seen this phrase, known about this phrase many, many times, but it connected with me a different way. On that bumper sticker, it said, God is love. And then I was like, oh my gosh. So if God is love, then love is God. Love is God. We all wonder what God is. Love is God. It says it in the Bible. God is love. Christ told us over and over again, don't you know you are God's? Don't we know we are children of that energy? So it's in our DNA. That is who we are. That is what our job, this is our classroom to get rid of all the gunks and chunks of stuff that is not us, so that we can be a conduit for that beautiful, wonderful source of all providing, all abiding, all loving, all knowing, all God. Now, along this pathway, I found a book about 3 or 4 months ago that blew my mind. I mean, and I study all the time. I can't tell you how many books I've studied and written, all the metaphysical classes and books and courses and everything I've done. This book blew my mind because, you see, I always knew there was more truth behind the story of Christ that wasn't out there. Because what about all those missing years, the lost years? So, lo and behold, this unknown life of Jesus Christ popped up somehow on Amazon. I thought, I'll buy it, I'll read it like anything else, and it was amazing. So it was written in the late 1800s by a Russian trader who traveled the paths of the Far East. Now you have to understand that at this time, and he writes about this thoroughly, in fact the first half of the book is what this poor man had to do to get to this. Nothing had really changed since the millennium for these people. Nothing had evolved or modernized. Everything was by caravan. The treacherous times he went through, at one point during a passageway through a forest at night, one of his men was abducted by a panther and eaten alive in front of all of them. He broke his legs a few times. I mean, it was crazy. But he had heard of these scrolls, manuscripts that were in a temple of the monks up in the mountains. And he went until finally he had access to them. All right, so here, I'm going to read a few things about it. These were direct words from Isa, because Isa, Jesus, he lived there first, mastered the teachings there first, traveled back from them into his homeland to help deliver the world. Okay? So, I'm going to read a few excerpts. First off, let's look at what Isa had to say about religion. Therefore I say unto you, leave your idols and perform not ceremonies which separate you from your Father and bind you to the priests, from whom heaven has turned away. For it is they who have led you away from the true God, and by superstitions and cruelty perverted the Spirit and made you blind to the knowledge of the truth. Here's another. But, said the priest, how could the people live according to your rules if they had no teachers? Whereupon Isa answered, so long as they had no priests, they were governed by the natural law and conserved the simplicity of their souls. And I think there's one more on that. Okay. So let's talk about what Christ has to say about where the Spirit is. He furthermore taught the pagans that they should not endeavor to see the eternal Spirit with their eyes, but to perceive him with their hearts and make themselves worthy of his favor by purifying their souls. That God is the source of everything. Everything. The eternal Spirit is the soul of everything animate, and you commit a great sin in dividing him into the spirit of evil and the spirit of good, for there is no God other than the God of good. The human heart. Isa told them that God cared not for temples erected by human hands, but the human hearts were the true temples of God. And enter into your temple with your heart, and into your heart illuminate with good thoughts, with patience, and the unshakable faith which you owe your Father. It goes on to say we must purify our hearts. One does not demolish that which has been given by our Heavenly Father and which has been destroyed by sinners. I have been enjoining the people to purify their hearts of all stains, for it is the temple of God. And again, one miracle, however, is the power within man to accomplish it. Man to accomplish. It is when his heart is filled with sincere faith, he resolves to root out from his mind all evil promptings and desires, and when, in order to attain this end, he ceases to walk the path of iniquity. Okay, there's a lot there, but it states the truth that the Spirit of God is in our hearts, and that the only pathway to it is to clear our hearts. Wow, that's a monumental lifetime task, isn't it? Monumental. So, if God is love and love is God, the energetic cause of everything that is manifested into creation, love is not something I can do or give. It's something that must reside in here. If I load up with God, it pours right out through me to others. But what about this? Don't I have a filter? Don't I have a mental filter with attitudes, internal beliefs, judgments, false thinking? Don't I have that ego? So if I'm delivering love through my filter, I might be having it loaded up with, I want to love her this way. I want to do this, but I don't want to do that. Or a sense of obligation of love. That's not love. So what we have to do is pick through all of those parts about us, our attitudes, perceptions, labels. And in Hawaii, I learned this, that there's over 20,000 bits of information per second. 20,000. And each of us can only pick up 126 bits per second. So guess what? We're all having a unique experience right now from our own internal belief system. And if we asked everyone who saw an accident out here, we all have different stories to tell, and every one of us would be true. So we block our belief systems about God, about others, etc., for the things we hold internally, and those are the things that Christ was talking about, wherein we had to purify ourselves. So, let's talk about this. How do I get to love? Well, the Hawaiians taught something beautiful. They say that each of us come into the earth with a bowl of light, that we are a bowl of light. But yet, we start filling up that bowl of light with rocks. Okay? They pile up. And where the big rocks are, little rocks slide in between, so that the whole bowl of light is full of rocks, and that all we have left is rocks. Okay? What am I talking about here? Those bowls, that bowl of light and those rocks are things that we've accumulated along the way that are blocking us from the sunlight of the Spirit of God. Go ahead and, I do that. Okay. So what we must do, as I said, pick away all the things that are not love, that are not God, all of our beliefs, so that we can get closer to the refinement of love operating through us. The Hawaiians had one discipline they worked, and that is that we are composed as humans of 4 parts: Holy Spirit, or God, higher self, our conscious mind, which is our thinker, okay? Our unconscious mind, which houses our emotions and our soul connection, and the physical body, all right? We're all 4. When we leave the earth, we drop this one. The rest goes on. But here's the funny thing. Our subconscious mind runs our lives. It runs our lives. But guess what's housed down there in that subconscious mind? Every single emotional memory that we have, every trauma, every hurt, every joy, and it's running our life 24/7. In fact, at some point, our conscious mind told our unconscious mind and emotions what to believe, and now it just feeds it back to us. And most of that was programmed before we were 4 years of age. So we have 4-year-olds running our lives. So we have to dig deep to find out what these false concepts that we hold and project out into the world are. Because, see, when we clear all that, and the more we clear it and clear it and clear it, we can access Holy Spirit, because Holy Spirit doesn't come into our heads. It comes in through our hearts. So it also goes to say that we must go into the internal temple of God, that internal resting place where our mental mind isn't working, but we are connected to the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind, the meditative mind, in order to access that conduit of God, because it flows from here to here and then filters out into our world. How important is it then to connect over and over and over to try and have that internal access to love? Because God is love. That heavenly presence that fills us, holds us, owns us, flows through us, becomes us. Then we are beloved. Then we are beloved. So, again, if love is a set of attitudes, belief, and practices held to with ardor and faith, practicing the presence of God's love in my heart, my thought, my feelings is my religion. So, there are a few things going on that we all need to know about from an astrological point of view. We are in a cycle within a cycle within a cycle within a cycle that dates back to 1500. In fact, we have not been in this energy since 1500, okay? And remember what happened after that time. Martin Luther nailed his precepts onto the church door, and that changed everything. Not immediately, but it changed it. You see, the church was the structure of all the government at that time. And it uprooted it and flipped it, and out came more freedoms. So right now we are in that very same change, but we're also in some other cycles, and they're all point dead on to this year. We have more major astrological lineups that will impact us and change us than we've had in any year for decades, or decades to come. So this is the year of change. Can we be part of that change inside? What looks like might be crumbling around us isn't crumbling, it's dying. The old ways are dying out. The old holds on ego and power and dollar-denominated dominance, that's dying, and for the good. It might look like it's not so good, but it's dying for the good. For as long as we hold the almighty dollar and material wealth, power in our grasp, that's a hold on to that ego. And we're doing it collectively. We've been doing it collectively as a world. And that's something we must drop right now. We can't wait for somebody else to do it. We have to do it. You see, Christ was the avatar of the last age, the age of Pisces, symbolized by the fish. Makes sense? That age is now ending, and we're moving into the age of Aquarius. And we have a new avatar. And that avatar is us. It's us. It's not one person, not one entity. It is us. We will change the heart and soul of humanity by our individual practices of love, by changing our own hearts so that we can all move into a brotherhood of man, a brotherhood of woman, love one another world. Very interesting. At the end of this year, in conclusion, on the winter solstice, the star of Bethlehem will be in our skies. It is a conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. They've now traced that back to the time that Christ was born. It will happen on the winter solstice. Exactly that's quite spectacular of the timing. And it will be at 0 degrees of Aquarius, ushering us into that new age. So what are we going to do to get ready if we are it?
Can you say that a little slower?
Okay. So, I will. Which part?
The part
one star or two stars?
Two stars,
together?
no.
And does
Okay.
the conjunction have a name?
Okay, all right. The conjunction of two planets coming together, Saturn and Jupiter, the big outer planets, the big spiritual planets, okay? And when they come together, they shine a bright, what appears to be a star, okay? Astrologers pretty much are pretty certain that that star was the Star of Bethlehem. Now, it does cycle around, okay? But it has its passages in time over time. But at 0 degrees of Aquarius, meaning it's shifting, okay? And what is Aquarius about? It is about sudden, unexpected change. It's about breaking free. It's about new age, new ways of being things, new medical technology breakthroughs, new communication breakthroughs, but most of all, new age, holistic healing, all those things that we've been praying for, being a part of, will now start clicking in and be part of everything, okay?
It's about being prepared for it.
Prepared for it. And how do we prepare for it? Oh, we're going to see some stuff out there that we're not going to like, and we might have to live through some stuff we're not going to like at all. But I'm telling you, from my internal belief system and what I've been given through connection, that the most important thing we can do is clear our heart, hold the space for God, hold the space for love, because that is what is anchoring in this new age. Not something we say, not something we do, it's something we be. We must be love. How do we be love? We must stay connected to this internal presence, this internal connection. The rest doesn't matter. It's all just going to play out. I tend to get hooked into it, and I have to unhook because I'm appalled by it. But then when I think, oh, this is so we can get to there, okay, it's an interesting movie now. But we can't afford to get hooked into it because we're the carriers of the new age. You wouldn't be sitting here if you weren't supposed to hear this. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think we have time for this. I'm going to segue a little bit. It still relates, but I'm going to share something with you. And this is really the part of that book that blew my mind. It relates to the divine feminine energy. In Hawaiian Huna, it's all about divine feminine energy. That's what we connect to, that's what we open ourselves to, and that's what flows through us. Okay? The highest, as they told me, and what hooked me to get there was it's the highest level of divine feminine energy available on the planet today. And I'm the most blessed woman I could be from what I've sought to have had that experience and be able to hold that energy. So, one of the problems we have with the earth at this time is that women have been cast to the side for millennia. We know this. This is truth. They have not been co-equal partners in our government, in our religions, in our societies. Not at all. In some parts of the earth, yes, they still have to cover themselves with dark veils and clothing so that you don't even see them. This is not sustainable. The problem we are in is because the heart of divine feminine keeps in checks and balances the ego, physical, material side of humanity. Okay? So this is what Isa had to say about women. Jesus. Okay? He was preaching somewhere, it says in this, and upon this an old woman who had approached the group to better hear him was pushed aside by one of the disguised men who placed himself before her. We remember this. Pontius Pilate and sent the spies out to watch him when he spoke around that area, when he spoke in Jerusalem and Nazareth and those areas. So this spy pushed this lady aside and placed himself before her. To which he said, "It is not good for a son to push away his mother, that he may occupy the place which belongs to her. Whoso does this does not respect the mother, the most sacred being after his God. And that person is unworthy of the name of son. Hearken to what I say to you. Respect woman, for in her we see the mother of the universe, and all the truth of divine creation is to come through her. She is the fount of everything good and beautiful, as she is also the germ of life and death. Upon her man depends in all his existence, for she is his moral and natural support of his labors. In pain and suffering, she brings you forth. In the sweat of her brow, she watches over your growth. And until her death, you cause her greatest anxieties. Bless her and adore her, for she is your only friend and support on earth. Respect her, defend her. In so doing, you will gain for yourself her love, and you will find favor before God, and for her sake, many sins will be remitted to you. Love your wives and respect them, for they will be the mothers of tomorrow and later the grandmothers of a whole nation. Be submissive to the wife. Her love ennobles man, softens his hardened heart, tames the wild beast in him, and changes it to a lamb. Wife and mother are the priceless treasures which God has given to you. They are the most beautiful ornaments of the universe. And from them will be born all who will inhabit the earth. Even as the Lord of hosts separated the light from the darkness and the dry land from the water, so does woman possess the divine gift of calling forth out of man's evil nature all the good that is in him. Therefore I say unto you, after God, to woman must belong your best thoughts, for she is the divine temple where you most easily obtain perfect happiness. Draw from this temple your moral force. There you will forget your sorrows and your failures and recover the love necessary to aid your fellow men. Suffer her not to be humiliated, for by humiliating her, you humiliate yourselves and lose the sentiment of love, without which nothing can exist here on earth. Protect your wife, that she may protect you, you and all your household. All that you do for your mothers, your wives, for a widow, or for any other woman in distress, you will do for your God. This man took this book. He took all these manuscripts, and I mean at great personal cost to him. And he thought, surely the Vatican wants this. We found the truth. Surely this will be published. We found the truth. The Vatican wanted no part of it. In fact, they wanted to take it from him and deep six it, never to see the light of day. It says, we don't need religion authority. All we need is a connection to God. It also says we need to balance our lives out by a prominent place of women by our side, softening the ego nature of our humanity. In closing, I just want to leave you with this, that the most important thing that any of us can do in this life is to hold the energy of love. Just hold the energy. And how do we do that? We return to it over and over again in our thoughts, in our focus, in our minds, and hold love. So just be love. Oops. And this came to me in a prayer one day. Let love reign. Let love reign now and forevermore. For peace is her sister and joy is her child. Be love, everyone.
Prosperity time, and we want to thank you for all you've done for us and all you continue to do, those who are watching as well. We have a square in the back if you'd like to donate using a credit card, or you can go, if you're online, to www.lcslonline.org and donate there. Join me in saying our prosperity affirmation with excitement. Here's to knowing 2020 brings new, exciting, wonderful, youthful, extraordinary, abundant rejuvenation for all of us. Yes.
It's pretty wonderful when you can get so absorbed that you're like in a whole different world. So this is one of those times when the work has already been done, and I simply say that the word then is but the deepening and the broadening of what is already in place, our integration of the truth spoken. We simply say for these blessings, thank you, thank you, thank you, presence of Spirit, and return tenfold to that from which it comes. And I will trade Miss Pat. For our closing prayer. For those of you who may not know, this is our prayer box, and there are prayer forms there. If you would like to leave the practitioners of the center a particular prayer request, we would be delighted to receive your request, knowing the truth of your being. And in this moment, I recognize the one life that is the divine source of all, and being the all that is all that has been so deeply embellished here this day. I know that it is as I am. I know that it is as each and every person here present, and each and every person seeking these doors and windows open, as the presence of God is at all points, at all times, in all ways, eternally and everlasting. Mind, heart, and soul. And from this alignment, I realize in my experience that the alignment in the truth, that there is only love, and that love leads the way, is manifest to all who are actively seeking it, all who are striving to align. For when we ask, so we receive. I simply say, thank you, thank you, thank you, presence of life, for the good and the more good. I release it into the law, and I let it be, and so it is. And this brings us to our closing, our going forth closing song. Thank you, love. I am love. Imagine that. I am love. Oh, and rise if you will, please, and dance.
I am joy. I am love. I am peace. I am joy. I am love. I am in harmony. Everything God's a part joy. You are love. You are in harmony. Everything God is on the scene. You are peace. You are joy. You are love. We are peace. We are joy. We are love. We are peace. We are joy. We are love. We are in harmony. Everything God has always seen. We are peace. We are joy. We are love. We are peace. We are joy. We are love.
Now, pick one person to turn to for eye contact. And if it's comfortable for you, repeat after me. If not, just stand there looking into their eyes. You are peace. You are joy. And you are what? What are we? We are love. Yes! Have a good week, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.